Will a 94 Mercedes E500 Limited with Lewis Hamilton posing in the driver's seat bring all kinds of money on Mercedes Marketplace? Let's find out.
Bit Nerds is your daily YouTube card game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds.
Sahan said, dude, you guys got to cover that 1994 Mercedes-Benz E500 limited edition on the MB market. So we are going to put you in the hot seat a little bit here, Blakely, just before you go to bed and have nightmares about ever having been on the show. Super cool car. The consignor is none other than RMC out of Miami, Florida. This is the outfit, JP, that you know very well because our really dear friend, Rami, has bought 2 cars from them over the last, just year. Was that fair to say, JP? 2 cars in a year?
Which dealer is this?
RMC Miami.
Oh, this is RMC. Yeah, he's gotten 2 cars from those guys, yeah.
Yeah, so this car, they, I believe, sourced out of Japan. The car is showing, as they say in the ad, and this is something, source of contention that we'll get to in a little bit. The car is showing 80,000 kilometers, which is 50,000 miles on the Brabus odometer out of Miami, Florida. The car had a lot of service done in preparation for the sale. It's cool that a lot of service was done, but I wonder why a car with 50,000 miles had so much service. These are the notes I'm making to myself. And also, it seems that there's some aftermarket Alcantara on the door cards and on the steering wheel, where there would have been really cool hued green leather to match the seats, which are part of the LTD package that came on this car. I also think this car came with 17-inch Evo 2 wheels, and they've been upgraded to 18-inch AMG monoblocks, which look fantastic, but they're not the correct wheels for the car. So it really depends on if you're looking at this car as something you're just going to drive, or if you're thinking this is a car they never sold in the United States and I'm investing in it as a collector car, then you have to spend some more money on it to bring it back to stock. And so I wonder if that hurts the value. So I keep reading, and as we get to the bottom, they go on to say that the car actually has 140,000 miles when you add up the correct Japanese DMV accounted for the original odometer and the current odometer. It's actually 140,000 kilometers and then 86,000 miles because they upgraded or wanted the vanity of the Brabus TAC, and for allegedly no other reason. That to me is kind of weird. And again, it's not a reflection on the MB market. It's just kind of weird how RMC presented the car. Then they go on in the last paragraph, and this is what I want to tease Blakely a little bit about, that they say it's one of 951. And I feel like saying that this is a limited edition car and then listing the number that it is, that it's one of 951, something should have been in the lead paragraph and not in the final or bottom paragraph. Then RMC also shows a picture of Lewis Hamilton driving the car, and then they say that it's actually him in this actual car. But again, that's just a claim. There's no way of proving that. They're like, oh, just look at the headlights. I'm like, well, okay. So I just thought that was kind of weird. Now, RMC is a funny outfit. They bring a lot of cars in from overseas. Anything out of South Florida, you got to take with a grain of salt. We know that. But I also don't want to put Blakely on the spot and ask him to pick on probably one of his bigger fish, because RMC does get really cool cars. They are usually limited high-performance vehicles that are worth a lot of money. So I imagine that's one of their better clients. But it comes back to something we were saying earlier about how far will the MB market go towards curating the cars and being part of the directive of how the cars are brought to market. And so this thing with the way the car is written up in the beginning and where it comes out and is revealed later what the actual mileage is on the car is kind of misleading, and it's brought up in the comments. So without putting it under too much pressure, I didn't expect any of this when I read the car. I just thought it was a fun limited edition car that one of our one of our nerd herds had come up with. But are you familiar with the car, Blakely? And what do you think about the way it's presented? Are you okay with the way this came to market? Did we lose Blakely?
Oh, I think we lost Blakely. Look at that. You're sitting here teeing him up, and he dipped out. He said, "I'm out." He said, "I can't do it anymore." Oh my gosh!
Phone died. That is the ultimate exit stage left.
Did his phone die? Is that what happened? Okay.
I don't know. He was on his phone. Yeah, and we go long, so he might have had a dead phone and not even known, which is hilarious. So
Blakely, if you're out there and you want to dial back in, just hit the same thing and we'll get you. He says, "Can you see me in the chat?" Yes, we can. You want to log back in?
Oh man, that's funny. In the meantime, JP, what do you think of this car?
I'm a little scared to say. I have issues. I'm not going to say that I have issues with the seller. I don't know them. My friend obviously has bought a couple of cars from them.
Really likes the guys. He really likes them.
Does, but I feel, like sometimes our mutual friend, he gets kind of caught up in the hype of things that he really wants, and he put some blinders on. I mean, his roof. If you had bought the roof that he bought from these guys, looks like okay, he's coming back in. Blakely's back. All right. Hey Blakely, put your headphones in.
If you had bought
Blakely,
the roof,
put your headphones
put
in.
your headphones in that he bought from these guys.
I can't.
Looks like okay, he's coming back in. Blakely's back. All right. Hey Blakely,
not gonna work, buddy.
Not gonna work, buddy.
Can you not hear me?
No, you're causing feedback because we can hear you.
Blakely.
All right, yeah,
Just
that's
flushing.
not going to work.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, hey, look, if you want to come back in, Blakely, you're going to have to get some headphones because if you're listening to it, it's causing terrible feedback. So, unfortunately, we got some technical issues with our guest. But yeah, so this seller, look, the one of the cars that he bought, again, he loves the car, and I've driven the car, and it's one of the most spectacular cars I've ever driven. But if you or I would have bought it, we've been pretty pissed because he spent $30,000 at our good friends at God and Classic to make it right. The car had all kinds of problems. He spent thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to make the car right. But he didn't care. He went and bought another car from those guys, and frankly, it wasn't wasn't right.
He didn't pay for an inspection, so I mean, he got what he paid for.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that he doesn't care. He buys it. He just saw the thing that he wanted, and he got it, and it wasn't right, and he went and spent a bunch of money because he doesn't care. But most of us aren't like that. Most of us aren't going to spend $200-something thousand on a car, get it delivered, and find out that we got to drop another $30,000 on it. Most of us would be pretty goddamn pissed off about that. And that is the reality of the situation with this particular seller. And the other car was, like I said, not much better. In fact, a lot worse. And, I look, again, I don't know the guys. I'm sure they're super nice guys, but listening to them on the phone, having the conversation, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. It's like, Rami's like, yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm like, hey, is it going to overheat? It's 110 degrees here all the time. He's like, oh, no, you can't drive it that hot. And Rami's like, it's going to be fine. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah, anyway, so not all buyers, I guess, just buyer beware, and that is one of the problems, that buying a car on any of these platforms is very difficult to do, because why would you get a PPI on a car that you may or may not own? You can only do the PPI if you're talking to a seller and you're negotiating a deal. Okay, here's how much I'll pay for it, barring as long as it passes a PPI screening. But on these cars, you're bidding, and if you win the bid, you have to buy the car. I mean, so I don't know. It's a tough situation, and I think that a dealer like these guys would do well to provide an independent PPI to be supplied with their listing to kind of overcome some of those objections that, let's be honest, South Florida dealers are South Florida dealers. What do we think this car is going to bring? We lost Blakely. He looks like he is. Yeah. I don't know if he's still trying, but.
Super cool car. And I look, RMC gets some really incredible cars down there in Miami. They really do. And this car is also really, really cool. I didn't like how MB Market didn't do a better job of being a custodian for what the true mileage was on the car. So it's, they say in other words, they presented it as what the current tachometer or odometer reads, and not presenting it with what they know to be on the car. And somebody brought that up in the comments and said, hey, could you clarify, because it reads like it's only got this, but now you're saying it has that. And then somebody else comes in and says, hey, it reads fine, I don't have a problem with that, which to me was somebody that was a friend of RMC Miami's defending them, because it was like the very next comment, and seemed very defensive, which I thought was really weird. The other thing that it was weak, and I'm not that I dislike it, but RMC is claiming that Lewis Hamilton drove this car, but they have no proof of that. It's like saying, oh yeah, I banged Cindy Crawford. Okay, well, all right, that's just a story. You know what I mean? I can't prove that to you, even if I say, well, I don't get into it. But anyway, but other than that, the presentation of the car is really nice. The car itself is super, super cool. And then we get down to the nitty gritty of what we think it's going to do. So basically the car closes tomorrow. It's sitting at $50,000.
Well, hold on, Deeb. Are you seeing the comments here? So Blakely is chiming in via the chat. He says the car has the 958 limited code on the data card, which is important. It is the one that Hamilton drove when F1 was in Miami. I don't know how they substantiate that. He continues and says, but still not saying that's a provable thing, but the details of it does show that. Okay, I guess. We do have a good relationship with the seller. And they are transparent with their listings. It's such a rare spec with a cool color combo, but it is TMU, so it does say TMU though. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm willing to believe that. Yeah, it's what's his name drove it. Okay, still, I don't know. I making it a definitive statement makes me sus. But again, okay, great. Why not? It's like it reminds me of the Pawn Star shows when people would walk in. Oh, this is the hat that Harrison Ford wore in Indiana Jones, and they're like, no, this is the hat that they sold at Universal Studios when you had a tour there in 1985. Which by the way, still worth something because it's an '85 vintage hat, of ephemera. Yeah. But it's not the one from the movie. So I don't know. I think it's cool that Lewis Hamilton drove one. Was it this one? Probably. That's cool, but we don't know. Oh, hey, look, he's coming back. Let's see if we can get him back. All right. Hey, he's back. All right. Stand by, Blakely. Let's see if your camera's still working. Okay, we got to do some techno stuff here to make Blakely's camera work. And so stand by. Maybe we can get it to work. I don't know. Let's try it here. Let's go camera. Let's go Blakely. There he is. Holy, we'll get rid of my ugly mug. Hey. He's back. All right. Boom.
Sorry about that.
All good. Thanks for coming back, man.
Yeah. So this car, yeah. And the details I'll talk about this car, it wasn't the headlights, it's the little piece under the headlights with the sort of cutout and the sort of air vent under the headlights on that piece. That's not a factory piece. So that's one of those things that are, it's a very specific piece identifiable to a car. And plus the silver on green, there's photos on there supporting, the details of that car. So we feel pretty confident, plus our relationship with the seller, to say that kind of a claim. Otherwise we wouldn't typically be like, hey, this is the car that Mariah Carey had sex in the back end. So
I don't want it. I'm out. That's the only reason I was going to buy it.
DNA.
Well, it's
DNA.
I mean, the limited, obviously, I do love the limited wheels. I do think the 18s serve it well from a standpoint of visually. Was
I right about the Evo 2 wheels? Is that the wheel that came on this car? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it would have been the Evo 2s for sure. Yeah.
I only said that because I was trying to impress you, so I'm glad I got it right.
You did it.
Yeah, hey Blakely, I've had this conversation with Deeb multiple times. He had a what was your Mercedes? Oh, looks like I got
190 16 valve.
Stand by. I got to do another technical thing here because we had lost Blakely for a while, and he's back. Okay, so
I had a 190 16 valve.
Yeah, and at the time when you owned it, Michael, you had put coilovers on it and changed some stuff that didn't seem like a big deal to me, but you swore up and down, unlike, like if you've got a 993 with coilovers on it, that's not going to hurt the value. Most 993 buyers are like, great, are they V3s? Are they something? As long as they're good coilovers, most people are going to be, they're down. If you change the steering wheel to a Prototypo, or if you put Pfister exhaust on it. But Michael insisted up and down that those coilovers would ruin the value of that car because he insisted that Mercedes buyers are more about the originality. And he was like, no, it's got to have the original weird ass whatever suspension that was unique to that car.
I had working self-leveling suspension, and I put it back on the car because finding a car that still had
you're making my point, Deep, that we're not disagreeing. That's exactly my point.
Working self-leveling suspension was going to be worth more. Not that the coilovers would hurt the value, but I would be leaving money on the table by not putting the stock suspension back on.
What do you? Okay. Oh man. Okay. The coilovers. You said would hurt the value because it didn't have the original suspension. Ergo, it's the coilovers. If it didn't have the coilovers and it had no suspension, are you saying that would have been better? You're driving me nuts here.
Blakely,
are Mercedes buyers more persnickety about originality, and are the details that Michael points out about this car not being original going to be something that hurts it because he says Mercedes people are just that persnickety?
People are definitely detail oriented about originality. I will say that, but on a car like this, you're talking about wheels essentially. I don't think that makes a huge impact. Wheels are probably one of the easiest things to swap out. The bigger issue on this car for me is probably the TMU thing, and the Brabus cluster is cool because it's worth a lot of money on its own, but it's not a value add when you turn it into a TMU car. I've got a 190 16 valve myself, and it's on coils, so I love the way it drives on coils too. So I don't think that hurts on a car like that. But yeah, I don't see it. I don't think it's gonna hurt this car with the wheels being different. Which
coilovers did you put on your car?
It doesn't have the self-leveling.
Calm down. We're talking Mercedes stuff here. Hold on.
I can't take credit for it. I cannot take credit for it. I got it like this. This is a former car that was actually on bat, so it's got if I remember correctly, I want to say it's Eibach springs. It's either Eibach or H&Rs. So
I had one on H&R Cup Kit, which was really nice, but they're not coilovers, they're not adjustable. And then on this one I just had, I did the ground control with the Eibach and the Bilstein, or the Coney, Eibach and Coney, and it was really good, but it was really stiff, way stiffer than the Cup Kit. All right, moving on.
What's this car going to bring?
Numbers. So our car closes tomorrow on the MB market, is currently sitting at $50,000 on 10 bids. I think that the TMU is going to hurt the value of this car. I think this would have been an $85,000 to $120,000 car all day long, but I think that with the low bid count and the confusion and that they're arguing about it in the chat, I am a little bearish on this one. So I'm going to say $69,000, which probably is not going to be enough. My guess if it lands at 69,000, I think it's an FTS. It's a fail to sell. JP, where are you at?
Yeah, guys, I can't say that I know a ton about these. The Japanese market cars don't typically bring as much as ones that are American, so I'm going to be pretty bearish on this thing. I'm going to say 57.5. Don't make any bets on mine, but I just don't know if this is going to hit. I hope I'm wrong. What are the let's see here, the bid nerds out there? The nerd herd is out there saying, let's see here, Rosk is coming in at 59.5. Randy really close to me, 58.5. Okay, all right, I'm not feeling quite so bad. Chris says 72.5. All right, so he has a little bit more belief in this thing.
He's also good friends with Blakely.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. This is a really cool ass car. Let's be very clear about that. This thing is badass. I know I'm kind of like I have. Okay, help us out with the seller, Blakely. While you were trying to get your comms back on, I don't have. I'm not going to say I have issues with the seller, but I don't have confidence in this seller. Help us out with that. What can you tell us about the seller? You said you have a relationship with them. They get a lot of weird cars. A lot of times they get cars you're like, where the hell? How do they keep getting these weird, crazy, unbelievable cars? How do they do that consistently without just knowing a bunch of Colombian drug lords? I mean, that's what it just seems like. It just seems like they're pulling cars out of Eastern Europe that were stolen from somewhere from, I don't know, what the hell?
Both of those things are true.
Two things can be true at the same time. Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a little bit of truth to all of it. But I think, they're getting a lot of those cars off of, Japanese auctions and stuff like that. They're doing the legwork to get them here. One, finding them, knowing what they're looking for, getting them here, servicing them, getting them turnkey ready for people. They definitely have their own, specific brand of car. And I think it works really well. When I was in it, last summer I went to Miami, had a few clients down there, and actually just went to stop in and see them, just because I love what they're doing. And there's some Benz guys as well, so got to spend a little bit of time with them over the last year. Kind of developed a little bit of a relationship. We've sold some other cars for them since then, and those buyers have been really happy. And everything's been as described, so no issues there. So that's just from the experience that I've had. But I'm sure there's other things to be had out there, but it's all been very positive on our end. So
every time I see one of their cars listed, it's in this driveway next to this shithole stucco wall. What is their problem? I mean, they sell $250,000 cars for lunch. They can't get a better building. They can't get a better facility or find a goddamn wall that doesn't look like it's like, oh my God, is this a repo lot? What the hell is with that?
Yeah, that's right outside of their main building, and I bust their balls all the time about that, man. I'm like, man, take this thing to a nice location, over the water, just anything. I mean, you're in Miami, like, for God's sakes, there's so many places to go. But I mean, the photos are good. They show the car for what it's worth. It's just they leave out a little bit of the glamour, which it's not a bad thing, I guess, or there's nothing wrong with it. Because they are still quality photos. But I could deal with a little bit more of a scenic backdrop if it was me personally.
Or get a studio that has no backdrop, something, blank or something. Get a studio. There's a genuine problem when you see a stupid stucco wall right next to the car. It looks cheap. It looks like the car is a repo. Next time you talk to him, tell him Bidnerd said that. That's all I know. All right.
Got it.
All right. So our car is also on a clean Florida title. So as they brought it in, they put it on a Florida title, which I think is a big bonus. That means you can borrow money to buy this car, and then you can get it into most of the lower 48, just not California.
Yeah, looks like we lost Blake again, but that's all right. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, I'm super excited to tell you about our sponsor, Guys Customs. Custom bracelets made to match your watch or your car. Unbelievable. You got to get one of these Guys Customs bracelets. Check them out. They support us, and we really, really, really want to support them. Guys Customs bracelets. All right, let's get back to the bids. Let's find out how much that car sold for today.
Which was the 1994 Mercedes-Benz E500 Limited, a car that was never brought to the United States, one of just 951 produced for the world, but again, not available in the U.S. market. It might have been in other parts of North America, but definitely not in the U.S. This car is with our pals down at RMC Miami, who have sold 2 outrageous 911 air-cooled cars to our good friend Rami, as we do the show, host a show in Rami's own studio. It was a really great selection by Sahan, because on the night that we covered it, we happened to have the founder of the MB Market, the platform this was on, Blakely Leonard, in-house. It's interesting to note that while I took at least a little bit of issue with some of the way that this car had been written up. And at that time, I kind of like went through the car and then went through some of the things that I thought were a little contradictory. And then Blakely's audio, interestingly and conveniently, sort of blanked out. We lost him, and he wound up typing in some of his comments, and then he charged his phone for 5 minutes, jumped back on, and then his phone died again, and he jumped back on. It was kind of funny, but it was all, he was a really good sport, and, we kind of got to the bottom of this. I thought it was just sort of weird that they made some mods to the car. They claimed that Lewis Hamilton drove the car, but there was no way to substantiate it except that looking at like really fine, minute details on the thing. Fair enough. But then somebody had changed for you guys in the studio that weren't here for this. Somebody put a Brabus tachometer in the car, which of course then changes out the odometer. So as the MB Market brought this car to their auction platform, they stated that the car has, and let me read my notes so we're all on the same page here, that the car had 80,000 kilometers and 50,000 miles. Well, then like 3 paragraphs down, they said, and then when you add the original tachometer in, it's actually 140,000 kilometers, or more or less an authentic 86,000 miles, and that's all been verified by the DMV in Japan, where they got this car. And I was like, well, hang on a second, why wouldn't you lead with that? And Blakely, of course, RMC Miami, I'm sure, is one of Blakely or the MB Market's probably bigger whales, because they have a lot of several $100,000 cool gray market cars, and they make a big splash on social media. So Blakely went on to say, hey, they're really great guys, and the TAC is really cool, and never really answered for why they didn't lead with that. And we didn't need to lead on our guest. We'd like him to come back. But anyways, with all that in mind, I'll lead off because I like the car. I thought the car was pretty cool. I've always been a big fan of 500Es, and I had one with my dad a while ago and loved the car. We put damn near 100,000 miles on that thing. So I thought this car, even though I liked it, I thought that some of the things that were weird in the ad would hold it back from getting to a true retail number, which in my mind for this car should have been north of $85,000 and as much as like 110 to 120 if this car were straight. But there were a few weird things on there. And so I thought that the bidding on this car on this platform would stall out at $65,000. I hand that over to JP, and JP came in underneath me at $60,996. And then Blakely himself said $57,000, which is kind of weird since it was on his platform. But anyway, I digress. So, guys in the studio, again, this is a $90,000 car. Care to venture a guess as to what happened on the MB Market for this car?
I am.
Oh, no. Blakely recused himself. Please forgive me. I said 69. I'm reading my notes wrong. Please, guys, let me go back. Stop the press. This is the first time I've done this, JP. I read the wrong numbers. So I said 69 for the car. You came underneath me at 57,500. And then Blakely did not bid on this car because it's his platform. I was reading the 996 numbers. We'll get to that in a minute. Please forgive me. So 69 to me, 57.5 to John. Wade, go ahead. What do you think this car would have done?
I don't know. It's kind of weird. The mileage discrepancy is odd. I don't think those wheels are right amongst some other things.
It came on Evo 2 wheels, and they upgraded from 17s to 18-inch monoblocks. Nice wheels, but not original. You're correct.
So I don't know. I have more thoughts on it, but $61,500.
Yeah,
it's odd. There's too many things that need to be changed, I think, but I don't know.
And Mental, what do you got?
I'm excited about this car, but I'm kind of with Wade on that. It's a narrow market with the Hulk interior on that. It's cool as all get out, but if you're gonna have a cool car like this, you've got to lead with the numbers like that, or it's just gonna start attracting bottom feeders who like the car but they don't recognize its collector's value. So I'm gonna say 59.
Do you guys think? What do you guys think of the whole Lewis Hamilton history on this thing? Does that do anything for you?
I mean, so was it like a paparazzi picture of him?
Yeah,
Did
he was
did
in town. He was
or-
in town. He was in town for the Miami Grand Prix, and RMC Miami somehow lent him the car, and he drove it around and posed for a couple photos with the car.
I mean,
but that is him in that actual car. It is legit.
Wow, I missed that in the last conversation. I thought they were implying that it was his car or something.
No, he
just
drove it while he was in
those
town for the Miami Grand Prix.
Oh, that's
I mean,
effing lame.
yeah.
Now,
Well,
man,
that's a common tactic that a lot of those high-end guys will do just for that reason.
that's
especially
so effing Florida, right?
It's one thing if he owned it, if there's some documentation that it was his. I mean, if he just rented it as a Turo rental, like nobody,
Yeah.
I don't really think that makes much of a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, look at it. They just pose. It's like a photo shoot with the car.
Mental, you've seen other dealers do that?
You read about F1 drivers, and like back in the day, they would get in trouble because they would show up at, they're in town for a race, and some high-end dealer wants to create buzz behind a car. So they're like, hey, take this thing out. And not so much these days, but back in, the 70s and 80s, they'd get drunk, get stupid, pick up women, outrun cops, do this kind of stuff.
Before
But-
cell phones, yeah.
Right, but the point being is it's actually not a scummy tactic. It's kind of a common tactic. You're generating buzz behind a car, especially the F1 driver for Mercedes. Yeah, why not? It adds a little to it.
If next week, if Lewis Hamilton wants to drive my S63 around,
This is all I'm saying.
I'll take some
You get-
pictures and,
you get Lewis behind you. Hey, Lewis,
Wait,
here.
yeah.
I know you need a car. Drive mine. Bam.
Yeah.
You will sell
anybody.
it. You will have it sold before the weekend is up.
Exactly. Driven on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sold on Sunday. Be good to go.
Okay. All right. So what happened with the results here?
JP, our car, as we suspected, failed to sell at $58,000, meaning you missed a Yahtzee by $500, and you beat Mental, who guessed 59. Right? Was that Mental? Yeah.
No.
And
Yeah,
Oh,
just
no.
now. I don't know.
Mental missed it by $1,000, and Wade was over at 61, and I was the high man at 69. I thought the car would get at least another 10 or 20 grand, but I thought it wouldn't make it to the retail number. Our car was at like 55 or something when we looked at it, so it really didn't do much more after that. So it failed to sell on 23 bids. JP, you got the win.
Yeah, that dealership. I said a few things about the dealership on the previous episode. I'm not ready to just fully disparage them, but I'm not ready to trust these guys. And I feel like the Lewis Hamilton thing, to me, knowing that they just kind of like paid him to drive it around, that
They didn't
actually
even pay him. They just loaned it to him.
well, I mean, okay, whatever. They gave him a car to drive around. That just seems a little cheesy to me, and it's a little sus, especially since so that's interesting, because think about this. Patrick Long, our Porsche guy, right? He was up in Seattle a couple of weeks ago. I got a chance to interview him. That was cool. But they were talking about, the PCA was talking about bringing a car in from Lizard Racing, which is a team that Patrick
Flying
Lizard. So yeah,
Flying Lizard. Yeah, he won his class in Le Mans in their car, which is kind of what cemented him as a factory Porsche driver.
Thank you for clearing that up. So they supposedly had a car from the team, and so they were going to bring it in and surprise him with this car. Supposedly someone in PCA owned that car or whatever, and it turns out that the car that they had wasn't actually a team car. It just had the livery, and it was a tribute to that car. Right? So they wanted to give him this car and let him drive it around for the weekend. And he's like, no, I'm not driving that. I won't even take a picture in front of that. What are you, nuts? To me, it's weird that Lewis Hamilton would get in front of a car that's not original if he's the Mercedes guy. I don't know.
There's a difference between a stickered up tart and an actual limited edition Evo, though.
Agreed. Yeah, but I mean, you guys are the ones that are pointing out all the things that are like not original with the car, and I feel like if you're representing the brand, I don't know, whatever. I'm just looking to pick a fight on this one, but I just
Bully.
cheesy. RMC do better. I think worse. The bigger problem was everything that you guys were talking about, not leading with the right information. So, what do you guys think of the results of that Mercedes? Let us know in the comments below.
Get the word!